Today I'd like to give you an overview of my methodology for lacquering hammers, a process that piano technicians refer to as juicing. It's necessary at times to harden hammers in order to get more tone out of them, and what I've done is I've taken this set of hammers and I have tested them on a piano in order to see just what strength of lacquer to acetone I'd like to use. We use a variety of different strengths of acetone to lacquer, and over here you can see my bottles 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 to 1 solutions of acetone to 1 part lacquer. The lacquer that I use is Duracryl. It's an acrylic lacquer, and I mix it with just your garden variety acetone. It's applied to the hammers with this needle applicator. I just fill it, and then I can go over and drip 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 on the hammers. Now, current production Steinway hammers, these ones that you see here, are a bit heavier and denser than the older style of Steinway hammers that they stopped making in 1982. And so my method is designed basically to address this type of hammer, and you can use it for the older style hammers also, but you don't necessarily have to do that. And by the older style, I'm referring to this kind of hammer that Steinway used to make up until 1982. This is a softer hammer, quite a bit less dense. It doesn't weigh as much. It's about 1 gram lighter than a typical hammer from today. And it's possible with these hammers to apply lacquer strictly to the shoulders up here in this area, and then expect it to leach into the hammer and cover the core. But you can't do that with today's hammers. They're just too dense. So the first thing I've tried to do in preparation for lacquering these hammers, of course, is to file and shape these hammers. And these hammers represent the different sections of the piano and kind of the ideal shape you'd want to get them. And I basically have tried to emulate Steinway's directions for how they want their hammers shaped. And I think I did a halfway decent job here. But anyway, as you add lacquer to the hammers, of course, you got to do this judiciously by my method. I use drops, usually taking the needle applicator and putting 10 drops at a time on each side of the hammer. So on this side and then on the back side of the hammer. And I do this in several passes until I've got all the lacquer saturating the hammer through and through to the core. So my first pass usually looks, I'm just going to show you some paper illustrations of the lacquering pattern that I end up with, mainly because I'm not going to start applying lacquer here in my basement where the fumes will build and I'm going to pass out. So I just have some paper representations of the lacquering pattern. So with my first pass, you can see this is about what 10 drops looks like in the bass, tenor, and mid-treble hammers represented on this piece of paper. You'll note that I don't really give you a pattern for the upper treble like number 88, because basically those hammers get saturated. So this is my first pass, 10 drops on each side or so, maybe 10 to 15, depending upon how quickly it absorbs into the hammer. And then this would be the second pass of 10 drops. And I think you'll note possibly that the second pass does look a little bit different from the first pass. The circles are slightly larger. On my third pass, the lacquer is starting to get yet higher and higher. Note where they are from the core of the hammer. The fourth pass is going to be almost to the edges of the hammer on its shoulders. And in the fifth pass, we're done. We're up all the way almost to the crown, where it's going to peek through the crown, and we've gotten to the shoulders of the hammers. And please note here, I leave these sections of the hammer unlacquered. I leave them soft, and that's to provide a springiness to the hammers. And then of course I also leave the crowns of the hammers untouched if I can. If I ever have to go over the crown, I probably would use something like a 5-to-1 or 6-to-1 or 8-to-1, just to get the kind of tone that I'm after, as sort of a final dust up of the tone there. So that's basically what I do with my lacquering process. I'll do this outside, of course. It's a beautiful day outside today, and a perfect day for lacquering hammers.